I'd like to talk about line. This is a wall dance that was done at the Joyce Theater, my home theater, for many years, early 90s to 2002. And this was a 20-foot long wall. It's a black wall with a yellow dowel attached to the very center of it. And this is, it was beautiful. And I had as many dancers as I had in my company at that time, 6, 7, 8, maybe there were 8, because it seemed like there were flocks of geese running. The sequence would go down from stage right to stage left, or stage left to stage right, and there would be center things where you'd have single line, an X, a side line, and a squeezer together, and then they'd get off one at a time. And it was just such a formal piece for me. It was drawing the bodies on this very large palette. It was 8 feet high, just a piece of plywood, but there were many pieces of plywood. You're basically saying there are 5 pieces of 4x8 plywood together, beautifully attached. The impact this wall was taking, not in an incidental way, but in a progressive way. And sometimes there would just be a lot of cannon. So you feel like you were at the ocean with the waves rising and falling and rising and falling. And then simple ideas where Paula Gifford would be balanced, get behind the wall and come out and just be balanced perfectly in a perfect line on the top of the wall, and then fall down in an X and then land on the ground. And then, the vocabulary was almost symphonic. When you think about it in dance, you really wonder what gets left out, because people are in a kind of preemptive way worried about X, Y, or Z. And if they would just let that go, they would see that X, Y, or Z was never a problem to begin with. And yet, if they didn't dig deeper, they would leave an enormous amount of potential vocabulary out. And how do you create, when something's so formal such as this, how do you create surprise? I wanted the dowel to be a perfect line in the middle of this wall that had place markers on it. It looked like just a yellow painted line, but when you got to it, you could walk on it. When you got to it, you could hook your feet on and stay there for longer. Or you could do a line that's horizontal and not fall. So it was just, it expanded the capacity for vocabulary in a beautiful, I think, surprising way. And I think more and more as I progress and learn more and more about movement and asking people to just watch you move, which I find fairly preposterous. Why would they want to do that? I have to incorporate something they don't expect. And how do you create a context for the unexpected with a movement? Either you're doing something that's foolhardy, which I have been known to do, or you're doing something they just didn't expect, given the circumstances that they imagined might happen when they first see the beginning of every piece. And so I try to keep them as short as possible. I try certain things that I've learned over the years, but I sit and think, what wouldn't they ever expect, given that they know the domain of the 20-foot wall, and they know the number of dances, and they know the dowel is going to interrupt, and we just went in and out and in and out of all the different situations that the wall could gather to create this or that image or this or that sequence. And I had all of these beautiful drawings. This is a kind of dance, for instance, with a piece like Orbit, that vertical pole, or a piece even like Gauntlet with the cement blocks, and many others. I'd start choreographing by myself, making my drawings. A lot of the drawings in those situations, like Ascension, the spinning ladder, I really couldn't be accurate, because it was necessary that I understood the nature of the equipment or the airwork, and you really couldn't conceive of what could happen. But in something like this, a classic shred piece, I knew what was possible, and then I wanted to expand what occurred with the sequence to be more like a symphony, like something that might be considered beautiful, or I certainly considered it beautiful.